Audio recording for this meeting has begun.
Thank you for joining the Deltek Costpoint timesheet training. Before we get started, there are a few administrative items to note. The Deltek timesheet user guide is available for download in the upper left corner of your screen. If you'd like to ask a question during the session, please type it in the Q&A box that's on the bottom left of your screen, and we'll try to answer as many as possible. We are also compiling all of the questions from the various trainings, and we'll be developing an FAQ document that will be shared with everyone. If you need to enlarge your presentation screen, there is a button on the upper right with 4 arrows. By clicking that button, you can go into full screen viewing mode. Your time for this training should be charged to your overhead labor charge code, either 0601-004 or 0601-005. And lastly, the new Deltek Costpoint timesheet system has not gone live yet. You should continue using the old system to be recording your time on a daily basis through the end of the year. The new timesheet system we will be discussing today will go live on January 1st. I'd like to now introduce Ms. Chris Fitzgerald for today's presentation.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody. So like Kelly said, we're going to go over how to enter in your timesheet. What I've done right now is I've shown you the portal that you'll have to go to get to both your timesheet and your expense report login page. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this portal, and it'll bring you to your portal page. You should have already received an email, or actually 2 emails, from the Deltek Cloud team asking you to set up your user ID and your password to log into the system. You'll have to enter in the temporary password that was emailed separately to you, and then answer some security questions and change your password. That information, the login ID and the password that you select, are what you'll use to enter both your timesheet and expense report system. So once you get to this portal page, to actually get to your timesheet, you go over on the left-hand side of the screen under the Employee section and go to where it says Enter Your Timesheet or Expense Report. When I click on that, it'll bring me to the login page. In the username field, you'll enter in your username, which will start with 47161. That represents ASCII. The A, which also represents ASCII. And then your employee ID, whatever that happens to be. Your password is the password that you created on the cloud site. So since I'm a consultant, I don't have an employee ID. I'm actually going to go in using a temporary password, temporary user ID. If you click on this link here that says Show Additional Criteria, it'll bring you to the system name. On January 1st, you will type in this information, Magellan Health Config. That is the name of the database that you'll go in to fill out your timesheet. Since the system is not up and running quite yet, I'm actually going to go into a test database, which is a mirror image of what we'll be using on January 1st. Once you fill out that information, at the bottom of the screen, there's a Remember Login information. If you check this checkbox, the system will remember your username and the system. You will have to enter in your password each time. And for those of you that attended the expense report training last week, it is the same user ID, the same password, and the same system name that you use to enter your expense report. When you first log in, you're brought to the main screen, where on the left-hand side, you'll see an icon for time and expense. When I click on that, the left-hand side brings up 3 areas that you can go to. For today's training, we're going to go to the time area. So I'll click on time, and in the middle section, I'll click on timesheets. To fill out your timesheet, you'll go to the Manage Timesheet screen. And in a little bit, I'll show you a shortcut when we first log in that will take you directly to your timesheet, so you don't have to go through this link each time. So when I access the timesheet, it brings me to that timesheet that contains today's date. So in this case, today is December 19th. It brings me to the timesheet that contains December 19th. This is the same as what it was in the old system. Across the top, you've got your name, you've got the status of the timesheet, and in this case, there are 7 or 8 different statuses that are exactly the same that they were in the old system. Mine is listed as open because I haven't entered any hours onto my timesheet yet. Once I've added hours and saved it or signed it, the status will change to signed. Of course, once it's approved or rejected, it'll say either approved or rejected. On the right-hand side is the timesheet period ending date. Your timesheet must be completed and signed by this date. To sign your timesheet, you'll go in the middle section here where there's a sign button. By pressing that, your signature will appear on the left-hand side of the screen. Across the top, you have the option of doing a new timesheet or toggling back and forth between your timesheets. Very rarely will you need to enter a new timesheet. The system has been configured so that it will automatically bring up a timesheet for you with today's date. Further along on the right-hand side is the option of looking at this screen in either a table view or a form view. What that means is, in this case, your header information is currently in a form view, and you can switch it to a table view by clicking on the table button. This will list this information in a row and column format. So I'll click on that to show you what it looks like. I personally prefer to look at it in a form view. You'll notice the button then changes from table to form. Of course, you can query for existing timesheets, so you can look at ones from the past, potentially the ones in the future. So this is the header of the timesheet. To actually add lines onto the timesheet, what you're going to do is go to the bottom section here where it says timesheet lines. To add a new row, there's a new button located on the right-hand side of the timesheet screen. Click on that, and a new row appears. What you have to do now is select your project. In the old system, you selected a contract or a charge number. It's the same concept, it's the same numbers. You now have to look up what's called a project. So I'm going to use my lookup, and it brings you to your charge lookup screen. We still have favorites like we had in the old system. You can enter in a BMP or a bid and proposal project, a direct or an indirect. Your holiday charges are here, and the overhead charges are down here under indirect. I'm going to click on direct project. I'm going to select a random direct project in my case. You'll notice I'm clicking down several times to get to the charging level of the project. Costpoint, which is the new accounting system, has a much more complex accounting structure, and it requires you to click down several layers to get to the charging level of the project. I tell folks to go in and keep hitting that plus sign until you reach a line that doesn't have a plus sign. Then you'll know you're at the charging level of the project. Once you've made your selection, I'm going to select it to add it to my timesheet. The other information should default on. For example, my pay type should default in, as well as any other information that you may not even see on your timesheet. Depending on the type of project that you have, you may have to enter what's called a PLC. This stands for Project Labor Category. It's the billing number that is used when the invoices go out. So depending on the type of project, this may be required. So before I continue, are there any questions?
Yes, we have a few.
Okay.
How often will they have to change their passwords for the system?
I believe it's every 90 days. I'm not sure exactly. It's a Deltek Cloud requirement. I believe it's every 90 days.
Will this feature for searching project codes work in Firefox?
Yes, it should. I found I've had some issues with Firefox with things not painting properly. So I typically use Internet Explorer or Chrome, but it should work in Firefox as well.
Can we manually enter the same charge code we used previously?
The charge codes have changed. There's a mapping from old to new, so they are going to be different. I believe for the most part, the first 4 digits you see there, in this case it's 3603, this has remained the same, but you can't enter, the rest of it has changed. In this example, it now says .09.99. In the old system, you may have had 3603, and then it was a dash, and then it was a 3-character second level. So that will change. So you will need to do a lookup and pick a new project.
Okay, so they're not able to just type in their code into the project line then?
You can type it in, but it can't be the old number. So I can go in here and I can type in 3603, and you'll notice as I type it in, the information starts filtering out on me. So I can continue typing. So you absolutely can. It's just from old to new is different.
Okay. Can you demonstrate how to add a holiday?
Sure. So I've added one project onto my timesheet, and now I have a holiday I need to add. So I'm going to add a new line, which I go up here and I hit the new button. And I'm going to do a lookup here. So I use the magnifying glass. All of your holiday charges, any PTO charges, are going to be listed under indirect. So I'll click the plus sign next to indirect, and it lists them out here. All of your holidays, all your PTO is a fringe benefit, so I'm going to select my fringe benefits here. And then you'll notice it breaks it out a little bit further. We have annual leave, bereavement for folks who get that. And here's my holiday line. I'll click on that as well. And here's my charging level of my holiday. You could also type in this holiday charge number here. I'm going to select that and add it to my timesheet. You'll notice the pay type is different because it's a holiday pay. And you can enter hours. Are there any other questions before I continue?
Yeah, we have a couple more.
Okay.
Is this mobile phone friendly?
Yes, it is. You can type in this URL up here at the top, and it'll bring you to that login screen that we were at previously, and you can enter in your timesheet directly from the URL. You don't need an app for it. You can go right to the website and get to it.
Will they be notified of the specific project codes?
So some of these questions are more AFSI specific. I believe there is a mapping file from old to new, so from the old contract number to the new project number. That does exist, the mapping file. We will have to find out whether or not that'll be distributed to folks so you have that information, but we can find that out for you.
Okay. And again, we have a couple project-specific questions, and we'll be taking those and getting you answers offline. So keep an eye out for those answers, and we'll be compiling all of the questions and doing an FAQ page. Okay.
And also, please note that the rules regarding the number of hours you work in a day, the number of hours you're required to work in a week or in a pay period, that has not changed. So just this system has changed. It's an upgraded system from your old Deltek system. This is just the latest version of that same Deltek system. So those rules are still apply, and they will not change at all.
Is there a place in this new system to request PTO?
There is. That's in the work schedule, and I'll actually go through that in just a little bit.
Okay. How do you make a charge code a favorite?
Okay, yep, I will absolutely go through that. So to add a line to your favorites, what I do is, similar to how it worked before, is you have to select the row. So I'm going to highlight, let's say I want to add holiday to my favorites. You scroll down to the bottom, the very bottom of the screen, there's an Add Line to Favorites button. And that'll add it. Now if I go in, I'm going to add a new row and do a lookup here in the project field, and I'll go to my favorites. And I've added several direct projects here, and here's my holiday line as well. Please note that the information you may have saved in the old system will not transfer to this version of time collection. So you will have to, if you've added anything to your favorites, you'll need to re-add them.
Okay, and when you're entering your time, to what place value can you enter? Does it need to be, for instance, 8.5, or can you put 8.45?
So the hours can be entered in the 1/10 of an hour increment. So I can come up here and I can enter in, let me delete my line, give me 1 second. I can enter in 4.3 hours. I can enter in 1.2. I cannot enter 4.25. It will not let me. I'm trying to enter a 5, it won't let me. So to the 10th of an hour, you can enter in your hours increments.
Okay. Will everyone have access to all of the fringe codes, or must you get access from finance for specific codes, example, bereavement leave?
I have to get that answer for you. I don't believe there's any payroll folks on this call today. So those same rules will apply that you had before. So I'll need to get that information from them as far as the rights that people have for those charges.
Okay, and that is all of the general Deltek questions we have for right now.
Okay. So a couple of the other things that are available, we talked about adding something to your favorites. And again, you select the row on the left-hand side. It turns it sort of blue in color, so you know you've highlighted it. And you come down here at the bottom and add the line to your favorites. To look at your leave balance, up here at the top, there are some links. If I click on leave, it'll bring up a dialog box that contains the types of leave that I have, as well as my balance. My current balance, in this case, I have 80 hours. Any leave that I've taken or any leave that I've accrued will appear down here in the details. So in my case, I'm a test user, so I added in some hours here. You typically won't see an adjustment in here. Your leave will be accrued through the Costpoint system and be added here as an accrual. Any leave that you've taken on this timesheet will show up here as a taken hours. Your revision audit, the same rules apply when you enter in your timesheet. If you save your timesheet and then make a change, you are required to enter in an explanation for that change. This is a requirement by DCAA. It's one of the things they make you do. It's not an ASCII requirement. DCAA requires that if you make a change to a timesheet, you got to put in a reason why. So what I'm going to do first, I'll save my timesheet. The system will validate, make sure I've got everything filled out that I need. At the bottom, you should get a message that says that it was modified successfully. If you do have any errors, you'll get an error down here instead. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a change to my timesheet. And I got an error saying that a revision or a reason is needed. And you may wonder where to go to fill out that reason, because it's not really shown here on the screen where to go. If you click on the error message, it'll take you right where you need to go. This happened to take us to a different tab at the top. The basic information tab is where we were to begin with. That's the tab that had your name, it had the status of the timesheet, it had the sign button. All that information was in the basic information tab. My revision explanation goes here. Troublesome with some spelling. And I'll save it. Other items that you may not use very much, I'm actually going to close out of my error message or my message. It was saved successfully. You have the option here to look at your pay type summary. If we have any non-exempt folks or folks that get paid overtime, this will show you those overtime hours versus your regular hours. I'm going to click on it, and you'll see that I have 10.8 hours to my regular pay type. It gives you an idea, if you go throughout the week, of how many more hours you have to work if you are a non-exempt or an hourly person before you can claim overtime on your timesheet. So one of the things we talked about earlier was adding a row to our favorites. We added the holiday to our favorites. If you want to see what are on your favorites, to do that, you'll come up to the Charge Favorites link up here. I can click on this, and it should give me a list of all of my favorites. Where did it go? So down here. Here's where you can mark it as a holiday. You can automatically load it onto your timesheet. So if I check this checkbox and I save the timesheet and I save the record, the next period that I have, this charge number will automatically be loaded. Now in this case, it's a holiday charge number. You may not use a holiday each pay period, but it'll be there for you automatically on your timesheet. You may have added some other hours on your favorites, other charges on your favorites that you no longer need or no longer use. You can delete that out by highlighting the row and pressing the delete button. That'll put a red X on the left-hand side, letting you know that it's been deleted. I'm going to come up to the top and hit my save. And we haven't talked about save really yet, but there's two buttons up here. On the left-hand side of the screen at the top, there's a save, and just to the right of that is save and continue. Most folks will use the save and continue button because this will save the record and will keep them on this screen. Similar to how you save an Excel spreadsheet or a Word document, when you press save, it keeps you on that document that you're working on. When I press save and continue, the same thing will happen. Any other questions before I continue?
Yes. Does this system have a feature for tracking flex time, and if so, can you please demonstrate that function?
So we are working on getting that functionality set up. It's not available yet. So hopefully as soon as we get that done and get all the rules figured out, we'll be able to get that set up for you folks and give you a training document on how to set that, on how to use that.
Okay. With me?
Is there another question?
I think we're getting some questions about leaves transferring over. Your leave should be unaffected by this. It's just a system transfer, not a policy transfer.
Yeah. So one thing I should mention about leave, the system right now is going live on January 1st. The accounting system is being transferred over on, I believe it's the middle of January or maybe around the 10th of January. So there may be a little bit of lag time for your leave. So it may not be completely accurate. We hope to have it completely done by about January 15th. But for now, it may not show any leave hours on your timesheet starting on January 1st because you're going from an old system to the new system. You have to get it updated, and there's also a holiday in place as well. So we need to kind of take that into consideration.
Okay. Is there a comment box to explain your flex time or comp time like with the old system?
Yes, there is. So within each cell of a timesheet, and by cell, I mean each row and each column has a cell. You'll notice on the left-hand side, a little piece of paper box comes up. If I click on that, it'll let me hopefully click in here, find it. It'll let you enter in any comments. Now this row may not require them, so it may not be letting me do it. There we go. Okay. So these same rules apply. Any comments that you add here, please keep them in regards to the contract that you're working on or the job that you're doing. Your client may request and get these comments, so we want to keep them clean, make sure the spelling is correct and things like that.
Will this work on a Mac computer?
Yes, they should. I personally don't use a Mac, but I have seen other folks that use them, and they have not reported any issues.
And a question about expense reports. Do they have to have that added to their profile, or will it already be there on the new system?
So for expense reports, it depends on whether or not you have a seat license for expense. Of course, everybody has a seat license for time because everybody has to fill out a timesheet. So depending on whether or not the folks at AFSCME have given you a seat license for expense will determine whether or not you can fill out an expense report. And if you don't have a seat license, you should not see the expense report module, which I'm actually going to scroll up here. Here's my timesheet. I'll close out here. Up here at the top, if you don't have a seat license, you will not see the word expense.
Going back to the leave and transferring over, if the leave shows 0 on the new system because it hasn't been transferred over yet, will they still be able to take leave within the system?
Yes, we're actually modifying the system slightly to allow people to, quote, I'm putting it in air quotes, quote unquote, go in the hole until that leave is downloaded from the GCS system into the Costpoint system. Then that will be transferred over into time collection. So yes, you will be able to enter in any vacation time that you have planned around the holidays.
Okay. Let me just scroll through. I think that is all of the system-specific questions right now.
Okay. So if I go back into the timesheet here under the basic information, what I'm going to do now is sign my timesheet. What the system will do is it's going to perform its validations based on whether you're a salaried employee or an hourly employee. So for example, a salaried employee may be required to work a certain number of hours each week. So we may see a message here saying that I've only worked 10 hours, 10.8 hours for this pay period. So I may get a warning saying that it's under the standard number of hours. For an hourly employee, you have to work 40 hours before you can claim overtime on your timesheet. So those same rules will apply. Whatever we had in the past as far as timesheet validations will take effect here as well. When I sign it, I believe it's working. So here's an error message saying I have to save my timesheet. So I must have made a change and not saved it yet. I'm going to close it. I'll go up here and save it. And then you're allowed to sign it. Here's the message that pops up. Basically, it's telling you that by signing this timesheet, you're verifying that the hours you incurred were for the date specified as well as the project specified. And it's working through it. Your signature will appear up here on the left-hand side. And again, normally it does not take this long to sign your timesheet, so they may be doing some testing. This is a test database, so some other things may be happening in here. So my apologies. I'm not sure what's happening with the signature, but again, your signature should appear here under the signature field. It'll have your name, it'll have your ID. And once you've signed it, your supervisor is notified that it is ready to be approved. I believe we're doing timesheet supervisor training in the next couple of weeks. Since this system is being rolled out on January 1st, you won't need to actually approve a timesheet until the middle of the month, until January 15th. So while we wait for that to clear itself out, I'm going to close out of it. I may have to reboot it, unfortunately. Are there any questions while I reboot my machine?
Yes. For hourly employees, will the warnings or validations around overtime look back into the last pay period if the work week spans 2 pay periods?
Yes. If you're charging overtime on your timesheet, it will go back into the previous pay period to get that full week's worth of days and hours on your timesheet.
Okay. And does the system validate based on state-specific overtime regulations?
I'm not sure. If you can you clarify that a little bit? I'm not sure what a date-specific overtime is.
The state-specific.
Yeah, I probably need a little more clarification as to what you mean by that. The system will look at the number of hours that you work in a week to determine whether or not you are allowed to charge overtime. Yeah, again, I have to maybe speak with you offline to find out what you mean by that.
There's a follow-up. He said, for example, in California, a 9-hour day must include 1 hour of overtime regardless of the 40-hour per week rule.
Okay. Yeah, so for California folks, you are given, it depends on what state you actually work in. It's not just California. So depending on the state, I believe Kansas, Nevada, California have a rule where you are charged overtime for more than 8 hours in a day. Most other states are more than 40 hours in a week. So if you happen to be living in one of those states, then yes, your validation will be done each day. And I believe in California it's both. So 8 hours in a day or 40 hours in a week. So yes, in that case, you are correct. It will validate it on a date-specific overtime basis.
Okay. Is there an optimal web browser to use for this?
I have my favorite. I typically just log into Internet Explorer, but I've also used Chrome. Haven't had any real issues with that. I don't use Firefox just because I haven't downloaded that onto my company laptop, but I've worked with other clients that have used it. So just, there's not an optimal one. There's no recommendations as far as which one you should use. Just my own personal experience, I have not had any issues using Chrome or Internet Explorer. I just haven't used Firefox all that much.
Okay, and we don't have any other questions at this time.
Okay. So my system, I had to reboot it a little bit. So what I'm going to show you right now is we talked when we first logged in about how to get directly to your timesheet. So when you first log into the system, if I click on this Enter Timesheet or Expense Reports, enter in my password. So here's your system, and again, you will enter in Magellan Health Config. If you go into this application field here, if you type in the code, let's spell it right, TMM Timesheet. This is contained in the training guide that went out, or that is available to you. But this is the code for the timesheet screen. If you enter this in and hit login, it'll bypass the scrolling that you have to do, and it'll bring you directly to your timesheet. The system will also save that code, so each time you log in, it'll bring you right again directly to your timesheet. You don't have to go through this screen here, time and expense, timesheets, and manage timesheets. It'll bring you right here. A little bit of a time saver for you if you need that. Now what I've also done on my timesheet is I've changed the width of my columns, and I've reordered some of my columns just to put it in the order that I need to put it in. So in this case, you may want to move your pay type over. So to do that, you highlight it, grab it, and just slide it over, and it'll move it over to the left and to the right. Your project column, if you want to change the width of the column, again, I'm in the header of the field, and you can see how the icon changes. I'll grab it. You can make it bigger, make it smaller. For me, this makes it a little bit easier when I fill it out. I can see all the information on the left side of the screen. To save this layout, so the next time I log in, it looks exactly like this, up on the right-hand side of the screen, there's a black silhouette where it says Screen Configuration. If you click on that, it gives you your login information with your user ID at the top. There's a current application layout section. If I hit the Save button, the next time I log in, this layout in this order and this size will appear just as it is now. Are there any other questions?
We have one last question. Is a password required to sign your timesheet?
In this case, no, it's not. When you sign it, it'll automatically bring up the signature into this field here.
Okay, and that's our last question.
Okay. So again, you should continue using your current time collection system through the end of this year, so through December 31st. Enter your time in, submit your timesheet on the 31st or by the 31st. Starting on January 1st, this will be rolled out. It'll be available for you to start using. Your timesheet will be, when you log in, will bring up the timesheet period ending on January 15th, so you can start entering in your hours in starting on January 1st. Well, thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day, and please have a wonderful holiday.
Great. Thank you, everyone.